Okay, call this meeting of August 11th, Robla Board meeting to session. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Oh, Daryl's here.
Moving on to roll call. Let the record show that all members are accounted for, with the exception of Dennis Boyd, our board president. As you know, or maybe many of you do not know at home, Dennis Boyd, our board president, passed away a couple weeks ago. I think it's appropriate to call for a moment of silence to honor Dennis. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And when we get to the board member reports, I think it's appropriate to open it up for any words that you would like to say at that particular moment. And I do have some big shoes to fill, so bear with me a little bit, because I do miss my colleague Dennis. Moving on to open session item 3, board action taken in closed session. There were no actions taken in closed session. So moving on to the adoption of the agenda, and there have been no amendments. Is there a call to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Moving on to section 4, public comment. The public comment section, individuals wishing to address the board on any non-agenda items which are of interest to the public and within the board's jurisdiction may do so during this time. The board may not act upon items presented during public comment, but may briefly respond to statements made, ask a clarifying question, or refer speakers to district staff or other resources. We have a procedure for this. To submit a comment in Assembly Gamut, enter your name and email address. No, go ahead. I'll just keep reading this. The board assistant will review and provide your comment to the board and enter them into the meeting minutes. Submit a comment on YouTube. Type your comment in live chat during the live stream of the board meeting. The board president or I will review and share your comment with the board as appropriate. So we'll pause for a minute to give those online time to catch up. I don't know if you already give me a heads up or something. We're good. Okay, we're good. Moving on to reports. The Robla Education Foundation.
It's present. The report is in front of you. This is the breakdown of fireworks. Our total payout is $2,640. I've got it all broken down. What's the people who actually work, how much membership they work, the amount that they got, and what they designated it to. And of that, I've already turned in a check to the district for $4,000 for the strings grant that we do every year. Strings will be receiving another $780 thanks to the volunteers that designate strings on their for they want their funds to go to. So for those of you that are here that actually work the booth, thank you. And thank you for recruiting for me too. So, other than that, that's all we've got going. We did out a bunch of flyers tonight over the Taylor Street School back school night for things. So there was quite a few people picking them up. So we're hoping that support.
Thank you. And a special thank you to you, John Redmond, for all the hard work you put in to this and to the fireworks booth. And for those of you who don't know, he really does work hard. I've witnessed that in past years, not so much this year because I was able to get my son to volunteer for me. But I did see John Redmond, and he puts a lot of work and a lot of effort into this. So thank you very much for all that you do. Moving on, Robla Teachers Association. Classified School Employees Association. No. And I will say that we hope that they return because we really love hearing from them. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Good evening, everyone. I guess I do want to start my report tonight, of course, saying a few words about our dear friend and colleague, Dennis Boyd. We definitely have very heavy hearts at this time, still kind of thinking about and dealing with the passing of Dennis, which happened very suddenly. When you think about Dennis, you think about the impact he had in this community. And I think that we all have Dennis stories about ideas that he had and things that he brought to our attention because somebody had expressed a concern to him. He truly is the definition of a community-minded person. And I think the fact that he was on our board for 20 years exemplifies that better than anything else. Of course, our hearts go out to his family, and we know this is a huge loss for them, but we too are his family, and this is a huge loss for us as a community. We'll continue to honor him in ways that we can, and we are working on developing some plans for some more permanent recognition of the work that Dennis did in the Robla School District. And I want to assure the community also that I, as superintendent, and the rest and the board, we understand our responsibility to move forward and to get a fifth member of the board. And we are having conversations and making decisions about how we will be taking those steps to move forward and have a complete board here in the Robla community. So to continue with business, I will, of course, remind everyone that school starts in the Robla School District this next Monday on August 15th. We have been working very hard to be completely staffed for the start of the school year. And I must say that I want to give kudos to our Chief of HR, Nicole Sullivan, who's been working like crazy to help find and to vet and to make sure that we are ready for the arrival students. I want to assure everyone that we are indeed ready. There are a few positions that are not filled, and we have plans to have people cover those positions. I assure all of you that there will be no students who come to school on the first day of school and do not have a classroom teacher in place, and all of our services will be available to students going forward. But we have some work to do to find permanent people, and we are continuing to work to do that. We have some wonderful new facilities. I'm not going to say anything more about this. I often get accused of stepping on Mr. Flores' toes, so he has a report tonight, and I won't say anything about facilities other than we're thrilled to have so many new classrooms opening up at the start of this school year. Over the summer, Robla kept very busy. Not only were we working to hire lots of new people, but we ran a summer school program at every one of our elementary schools and Freedom School at Taylor Street School, and we'll be hearing more about that over the next few board meetings and talk about the success of that program. I do have to say, I haven't even told Mr. Roberts this. I got the most wonderful phone call. Most of the phone calls I get from parents are about concerns. but she just wanted to thank me for bringing freedom. I took complete credit, Mr. Roberts, for bringing Freedom School to the Robla School District, and she wanted to thank me for making that happen because it was such a successful endeavor for her child this summer. So I think that's a wonderful testimonial to the wonderful things that happened this summer. We did a new teacher institute for all the new teachers that we hired, and Mr. Penman is here. I want to thank him for all the work that he did to orient our teachers to all of the programs and services that we have. I know that he and his staff put in a lot of work to make sure we were ready. And as we move towards instituting universal TK, we have worked really hard to make sure we are ready for that. Ms. Earhart, who's retired, put in a lot of work to help us to get ready, and we're grateful for that. Our new director, Ms. Marco, is not here tonight. You will meet her soon, and she, I think, will be a wonderful addition to the preschool. And we are very ready for TK. And one of the ways we got ready was to have a TK Institute that took place late last week and earlier this week. And I think that our TK program is going to be very, very strong. To mark the start of the school year, we have our annual employee picnic that will take place tomorrow at 11 o'clock. It will be under the beautiful tent that is out in the field here at Robla School now. We will serve lunch. We will have words of welcome from some very illustrious people and little old me. We will be giving out longevity pins to recognize years of service in the Robla School District. We have encouraged all of the schools to show their school spirit by wearing their school shirts. We did design new district office shirts, and these have been sized for you board members, and I'm going to pass those down. We encourage you to not only come to the picnic, but wear your new shirt. And we will, of course, have gifts for all of the employees as well. We have a few themes that we're taking on this year, and one of the themes that we are taking on is what we're calling contagious positivity. We feel like it's really a time to focus on being positive, and we've been worrying about things being contagious for some time, and we thought we would kind of play with that and say, let's catch something good from each other. Let's do that. And so we are going to have that be a theme for this year. I feel that getting back to Mr. Boyd, he is the personification of contagious positivity. Wherever Dennis went, he brought a smile and he brought joy and he brought a positive outlook to things. And I think if more of us could live our lives like that, this world would definitely be a better place. So in honor of him, we will continue to have that be a theme this year. We will focus on the mental health of our staff and the mental health of our students. And I want to thank our mental health team who's been really helping me to put together some information around how we can roll this out to our employees and to the community. Another theme that we will have this year is safety. With recent happenings in the world, we really feel that it's important to reassure our community that Robla is a very safe place where your child can come to school every day, and our employees can feel assured that they will be kept safe at school. I'm happy to say that this is not a focus area because we have an outcry from our community in regards to concern, but we enjoy a great deal of trust here in our district with our community, and this is one of the ways we maintain the trust by being proactive and being reassuring, even if they haven't expressed any concerns to us. So we will talk about that. We will talk about how we have upgraded our facilities in efforts to be safer. We will talk about the fact that we do active shooter training, something that's unfortunate that we do, but necessary that we do. That's called ALICE training. And we will be talking about how we do mental and physical, we will keep students mentally and physically safe. So each year I do a welcome video. I used to do a welcome letter, and smarter people than me taught me that, Ruben, you need to, kind of get with it and maybe do a video. So I've started doing a welcome video, and I have a draft of this year's video. As fun as it is to watch myself, I'm going to show you this first draft of our welcome video. Hello, I'm Ruben Reyes, and I'm the superintendent here in the Robla School District. Welcome to the 2022-2023 school year. Whether you're a returning student, family, or staff member, we're excited about this upcoming school year and look forward to welcoming our students and our families back to our classrooms and to school events. Keeping our schools safe is our #1 priority in the Robla School District, both physically and emotionally. Increasingly, our families are asking about planning and preparedness for school emergencies, as well as prevention efforts. We are dedicated to ensuring that our campuses are welcoming and safe places for our students and families, and I would like to share with you the ways that we ensure our schools remain safe places for our students to learn, so that we can thrive in every aspect of our lives. Each one of our schools has reinforced their entry points with locked gates and doors so that campus visitors cannot access classrooms without checking into the front office. Over the past few years, the Robla School District has invested nearly $50 million in modernizing our facilities. Thanks to the generosity of the Robla community, who passed a facilities bond in 2014 and again in 2018, these funds have allowed us to build more security into the designs of our schools. We continue to implement the ALICE program. ALICE is short for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. This approach is used for dealing with school shootings and other emergencies. While it is unlikely that an active shooter situation would occur, all leaders in the Robla School District have been trained and certified in the ALICE approach. We also perform regular safety drills so that our staff and students are prepared for an emergency, and we have strong partnerships with local law enforcement and emergency response agencies to keep our schools and the community safe. Our visitor check-in procedures also keep safety at the forefront. If you'd like to visit your child at school, you will be asked to show a form of official identification, such as a California driver's license. Your ID will be scanned through a database, and once you've been cleared, you will be issued an official visitor badge, which must be worn while you are on the school campus. When you leave the school, you will check out at the office before departing. Not only will this help ensure our schools are safe, but will also help us to know at any moment who is on the school campus should an emergency arise. We also strive to keep our schools emotionally safe for our students and support healthy school climates. Our staff has completed 2 years of resilience training, which focuses on the diversity of our students and staff and equitable and inclusive policies and practices. Our Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, or PBIS program, supports students' behavioral, academic, social, emotional, and mental health, and improve students' social emotional competence, academic success, and school climate. We have social workers and psychologists at all of our schools to support students, staff, and families. We have added additional clinicians at our schools over the past few years to increase this support. It is important to acknowledge the role of students and families in looking out for one another and creating safer schools. They may be among the first to recognize warning signs of someone at risk of hurting themselves or others. We encourage students and families to speak to a principal, teacher, social worker, law enforcement, or another trusted adult to get help. We are looking forward to a great school year for our schools and fun and engaging learning activities for our students with protective systems in place, preparation to respond, and proactive prevention efforts to keep our schools safe and secure. Okay.
Pretty good draft.
You think? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. A lot of people put in a lot of work to put that together. Thank you. Moving on, I do want to talk about the budget for a minute as the process goes. The Robla School Board adopts our budget for the upcoming school year in June. This year in particular, some things have changed since that adoption in terms of the state adopting its budget. And so Mr. Castillo is here tonight. I wanted to we've asked him to take a few minutes to just give the board a little bit of an update about how the budget has continued to evolve. Mr. Castillo, thank you.
think it's working now. Good evening, Vice President Barnes, Superintendent Reyes, and board members. Is it working? Oh, how many times I had that? This? No. Yeah. Okay. The the board approved our state budget on June 23rd, about a week before the final state budget, and we actually did our adopted budget based on the May revised. And this year, in particular, there were some significant changes. So we just want to update the board, our community, of those changes. So there were some major topics in the governor's new budget. And then one was new 2 block grants, and one is the expanded lending opportunity. Even though we include those grants in our budget, there was the amounts of the total. There's some changes how those funds can be used. One, as a big picture out of that, as we hear the new funding the schools obtain, we receive about 60% of the new funding is considered one time, and 40% about ongoing. When we receive one time, it's very clear we're going to receive it in this fiscal year. And even if we establish new programs with the funds, we're not going to receive new funding for the upcoming years. So these 2 programs, the R block grants and the learner recovery, they're actually new. When we adopt a budget, we call it a one-time discretionary block grant. We anticipate about $2.4 million. And then we also had a expanded learning opportunity. So in particular, this one-time discretionary, so it still became one time, but it's not discretionary anymore. So what it is became the learning recovery emergency block grant. And this is, as the title says, is pretty much we could use it for any learning for the students, instructional. I want to point out that this has a deadline of about 6 years. We had to spend it by 27, 28. So even though it's one time, we don't have to spend it all in this year. We had about 6 years to spend it, and we had to track it very carefully in our quarterly reporting, the year-end reporting. And then what are some of those allowed uses? Then this is the most restricted of the 2 grants. Is anything related to how we can help our students recover the learning loss due to COVID-19. So I will call it this the instructional block grant. And then we have the other block grant that is the arts, music, and instructional materials block grant. This is a little bit more discretionary, and we have actually one less year to spend these grants. It's just we have only like by 25, 26, we have to encumber pretty much spend it by this year. One thing about the difference is this one, we will come to the board, a request for board approve, we have to discuss it and approve this plan during the board meeting. So a lot of our users, again, this is more discretionary, more unrestricted. When you have the word operational costs, pretty much we could use it for any legal purposes that we are allowed. We can of course combine these 2 grants, and do something with those 2 grants. So that's where we are. As we discuss this with our superintendent Reyes, we discuss about how could we use these grants to help us that transition from the COVID-19 funds to these new funds, so the landing or the programs that we start doesn't go to down the cliff, the programs that we start. And then the other one is the expanded learning opportunity grant. So that's so this one is we receive less money than anticipated on this, more money than the other ones, but this one is a continuation. We pretty much have worked on this since last year. We are ready to start this program. We're working with the city to start this program. Again, this program, the Spend and Learning, is we had to offer some students opportunities to attend before and after school activities. So overall, with these three grants, the district is expected to receive about $1.5 million more than we anticipated at the adopted budget. Something that is new for 22-23, this is transportation. Transportation has a challenge for the school district throughout the county, the state, even through the whole nation. So for the first time ever in the longest time, that there's funding for transportation, and then what it is they're still not covering our costs, but they will cover about 60% of our transportation costs. So we will receive. I'm sorry, just hitting too many buttons. About $235,000 for transportation. So we will come back to you with a plan. The good thing about we are already doing a lot of transportation. So we just have to put a plan together about what are we to present it to the board. Because with a Spend the Learning opportunity or high on duplicate account, we might have to provide transportation for the students for the before and after schools. These are the major changes. Our staff, we listen for about 6 hours. So budget updates, we update you in about like 6 minutes, but I think these are the major changes. So unbelievable. This is
All right, Mr. Castillo, thank you. I know I'm having a long report tonight, but they won't always be this long. My final thing is just to extend to the board the invitation to a meeting of the Sacramento County School Boards Association. You might recall that pre-pandemic, the County Office of Education would pull together the boards from all of the areas, school districts, for dinners a couple of times a year. And so we're going back to in person. And the next one will be on October 12th at the county office at 5:30. And dinner will be served. And the speaker will be retired Police Chief Daniel Hahn. Do you know if you're available? If you know tonight, let us know. Or if you need to check, you can let us know.
What's the date again?
October 12th.
That's a Wednesday. I'm available. Count me in.
Okay, looks like all four are able to attend. Great. And finally tonight, the employee gift that we gave out last spring, not all the board got their bento boxes. Does anybody not have one of these?
I didn't.
Okay. It doesn't have any food in it, but it is.
Anyone else? Anyone else not get one?
Yeah.
You didn't get one?
I get the one.
I got one.
I got one.
Okay.
No, actually, I don't know if I did or I didn't.
Oh,
I will.
you let us know.
Okay.
Okay.
Did not.
We can deliver. All right, that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, moving along to board member reports. Trustee Devine.
I'd like to take my time to say how much Dennis will be missed. When I was first elected, he called me the next morning and we talked for about 3 hours on the phone, and he made me feel like my input was very valuable and that what I was going to be bringing to the school board was something that was missing because I have a child with an IEP and disabilities. And he validated my decision to run, and he just loved this community, and we will all miss him.
Trustee Cardona.
Sure. I also like to express our loss. I had the opportunity to meet Dennis in 1998, and he was a good friend of mine. I used to have a coffee shop. I see him daily for almost all this time, and for me he was a good friend, and he always he was a so positive person, and he was my tutor here. He helped me through the beginning of my career as a board member. For more than anything else, he was my friend. I really gonna miss him. I think we do love a beautiful person, and our community owe him a lot because he was always this. I remember always put the community first than anything else. I'm gonna miss him.
Trustee Deleuze?
Yeah. So the first of all, being a school board member is well, let's just say nobody's getting rich becoming a school board member. It's also can be very it can be taxing. It can be a lot of work. It can take a lot of energy, and you can put a lot into working to bring people together. When I started on the board almost 18 years ago, Dennis was already here. And that was after well over a decade of serving on the board over in the North Sacramento School District. Dennis, even before retirement for him, community and serving, being a servant of people always was a part of who he was. Whether it was Rotary, whether it was on the school board, whether it was part of Reading Partners, I know very, very few people who were as giving of their time, giving of their talent, and as giving of their treasury as Dennis. He was a model and set forth an example that I think we all need. If everybody gave a fraction of the time to their community and to others that Dennis did, I think about how much better this community would be. Robla, California, this world is a lesser place without him being here, and he's going to be missed.
Thank you. For those of you who are not in this room, who are at home watching, and even for those here, but mostly those here know this. This is what makes our district and our board special, because we really are friends. We act like family. We argue like family sometimes. And I've been told time and time again that this is rare that you have a board that gets along this well. And Dennis was a large part of that. You've heard how he has treated other board members and helped them, and my story is pretty much the same. He approached me, saying when I was sitting out in the audience, and approached me and said, "Hey, can I talk to you about running for board?" And I'm sitting there, introverted person in the audience, and he talked me into it. He told me about the commitment and things he could do. That's the kind of person that Dennis was. He really helped make this a family, but not just the board, the district. And so I'm definitely going to miss my friend Dennis. And I remember going home and talking to my wife about this dude who looked like Popeye that was talking to me about, how the school board. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. So I will definitely miss him. I do have an era of optimism for this year, and part of that is because of the things that Dennis has helped instill in us, but also because we have a lot going on this year. We have a lot of new people, we have a lot of new classrooms, a lot of new buildings, and it's exciting. So I really am looking forward to this school year, and Robla is a wonderful place, and we always try to make every day count. The last couple of years have been tough. We've had some challenges. We've always worked hard, but I'm feeling very optimistic. So very happy right now. I may not look like it because I miss my friend Dennis, but I am very happy and optimistic. Okay, moving along to presentations. We have our first presentation is a facilities update with Ronald Hickey from CFW. Oh, actually, no. Sorry.
Surprise.
I didn't realize you got so used to Ron. Good evening, Emilio with CFW. First off, before I get into the presentation, I do want to share our condolences with the passing of Dennis. We've had a relationship with the Robla since 1992, I believe. And along Mr. Raven uh, and Ruben, superintendent, Dennis was Robla. That is, or is Robla in many ways. And, it's going to be tough looking over there and seeing somebody else in that seat eventually. And for now, having an empty seat. But, he was a great supporter of what Robla was trying to do in the classroom. He was a great supporter of the facilities program that we were trying to put in place. And I think that's very fitting that, he was able to see some of these transformations that occurred. I'm a little bitter that, we didn't have another 30 days or so that you can see, all these classrooms coming online, but I think he really was, the interactions I had with him very positive about what we were doing and how we're going. And I think it speaks to the board's legacy and the district's legacy and the Dennis's legacy of the accomplishments that the district has been able to achieve over the last 6 or 7 years. And hopefully you'll see Dennis in the classroom and with the teachers, in the students, and a little bit in the facilities as well. But, did want to share our condolences to everybody at the Robla family. Just really, like I said, I've been exposed to Dennis and Mr. Raven over here for 25 of my 35 years living. So, it is, I know you're laughing at me. You're guessing ages? Okay. But no, he will be missed. And, it's something that, it's going to take some while for all of us that are involved in the Robla community to get used to. So with that, superintendent asked me to share photos instead of text. So we try to comply. But over at Bell Avenue, first off, as we've been talking about for many months, we knew that August was going to be the nexus point of all of our major construction projects. I'm happy to report that the vast majority of those activities have been completed. We are still addressing a number of items at Bell Avenue as well as Glenwood, but we do believe that we will be in a position to have students in the classrooms on Monday with teachers. There might be a couple boxes in the corner, and we will clearly find something wrong Monday afternoon. A sink faucet or a piece of carpet, but those will be addressed by the contractor. One of the things that really struck me was when I was walking around Bell Avenue, and if you haven't been out there in a long time, there used to be these walls between what was now the new building and the existing classroom buildings. And if you can see the photo on the right-hand side here, this is taken from the back of the new two-story classroom building, and you can actually now see all the way down through the campus. We had these walled-in breezeways before, were these courtyards, and those are now gone. And all of the covered walkways were replaced. We were hoping that we were able to repair them. Repair was not an option, and the board graciously approved additional work to be taken underway to replace those. But now that campus does feel like a integrated campus as a whole, and we're looking forward to having all the students there later, I guess Monday. Some couple other photos just kind of showing some of the progress that has been made over there. In addition to the modernization of the 3 existing classroom wings, we did also install 3 additional kindergarten classrooms over there as well, and created a little kindergarten village for our youngest learners. We are still in the process of working with the state on getting additional funding for TK and preschool classrooms. That's an item that we brought to the board earlier in the year. We hope to have that determination back from OPSC, the Office of Public School Construction, later this month or sometime in September, with the funds, if awarded, allocated to the district. Probably that's September or October state allocation board meetings. Over at Glenwood, we were putting down asphalt today for the parking lot. So on Monday, teachers will have a place to park. And so we're working on that and just showing some of the exterior of that kindergarten playground. The classrooms over at Glenwood. One of the things that, I really want to commend the district for is a lot of school districts spend their time really concerned about how the schools look like from the street. And from the very beginning, it was about making sure that, students had a high quality classroom, teachers had a high quality learning environment in which to to practice their profession. And from that perspective, I think that Robla's done a tremendous job of that. And as the community continues to support us, we've been able to look at some of those things outside the classroom as well. And that's something we're continuing to look for. But I think in terms of accomplishing the board and the district's goal of providing 21st century learning environments at all of its school sites, we knew that August of 2020 or the 22-23 school year would be that time where all of our classrooms would reach that particular milestone. So very excited. As you can see, we had some industrious teachers that were able to unpack and arrange things, which was very nice. And it's another room. We have not quite unpacked the library yet over at Glenwood. But when that does occur, I would encourage everybody to go look at it. The support spaces that we were able to install in there were a far greater improvement to the accordion style walls we had previously. I didn't know we had space behind those walls, even though we had many of our board meetings there at one point. But the space looks wonderful and great. And I would give all the teachers maybe about 10 days or so to settle in. And then, I'm sure the superintendent and staff would welcome you on site to take a tour, but let everybody get unpacked and going. But it's truly remarkable to see the transformation over at Glenwood, to see it over at Bell. And then to add, obviously, that's in addition to, the past success we've had in terms of opening up Robla and improvements to Maine and Taylor. So I think it's just been a lot of hard work over the last few years. And I think staff would be relieved to know that the majority of our major construction will be ceasing in the next 30 days. There may be a project or two that pops up along the way, but in terms of having to deal with the bulldozers and the beeping sounds and things of that nature, cutting off water or gas and things that I think we'll be pretty much out of the woods in the next 30 days. Looking ahead, like I said, we're going to cease major construction activities in 30 days. The only caveat to that is if we do get notification of the grant funding for the preschool and TK classrooms to be constructed at Belle Avenue, if that funding is received, we will be working and launching into a procurement program similar to what we've done before in terms of getting architects, engineers, and so forth on board. The good news is you should have a whole year of design before we have to do any construction and so forth on that side. We're also working with the district to plan a ribbon cutting or a dedication ceremony at Belle Avenue. And so I'm sure the superintendent will have details with that as that is finalized. And then lastly, we're continuing to work with the district and updating the facilities implementation plan and providing the board updates. And we'll continue to provide board updates on future projects. There are some ancillary projects that are out there, installation of shade structures, site drainage project and so forth that will continue throughout the year. But like I said before, the major construction, the idea of walls and things of that nature will be ceasing in the next 30 days. With that, happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Questions? None?
Could I just add, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add something that I think is really, really important to mention, and that is, it's wonderful to see pictures of beautiful buildings, but for me, the most important thing that this exemplifies is the equity that is now true in the Robla School District. So many school districts have this beautiful school over here, and then over in this neighborhood, there's this other school where the children feel that they're not as valued as much. And seeing that that level of classroom now exists at all 5 of our elementary schools, I think is something that the board should be very proud of. That everyone has access to that technology. Everyone has access to a room where they can feel valued and where we can maximize the learning that takes place there. That to me, I think, is something for the board to be very proud of.
Thank you. And Emilio, I want to say that it's been a pleasure working with DFW. And I say that because when I joined the board, I knew nothing about this. Nothing about bonds, nothing about buildings or anything like that. And I think I'm a smart guy, but that's a lot to learn. So it was a pleasure working with you, with CFW, and learning, but also seeing the commitment that you had. Because just like you mentioned today, you're still going after more funding to help us out, and I so appreciate that aspect because there are a lot of things that I wouldn't have known And maybe some of my colleagues might have, but I'll admit I did. So it's nice to know that we have a really good working relationship and that you do go the extra mile of trying to get more funding and help our dollar stretch even further. So if you can take that back to CFW, say just thank you.
Absolutely, I appreciate you saying that. And like I said, it's been a long-standing partnership. We've had many different roles with the district over the years, and by far this has probably been the most involved that we've been with the district. But it took a tremendous amount of trust, and I think having very candid conversations about along the way about what it is that we wanted to achieve, and really having the support of not just the board but also district staff and leadership being able to accomplish this. I mean, sometimes we start programs like this and you finish that first school and it's just, you know what, hey, this is not what we're looking for. This is not what we want to go do. But I mean, I think to the superintendent's point, the fact that you now have that level of equity in terms of a facility across the board in those classrooms. Now, um, I love your sentiment, and I'll be the first one to tell you that us finding more funding is a little self-serving, but I do appreciate that in terms of what we're going to do, and there's still a lot to do. I mean, I think that's the other thing. If Robla Elementary has taught us anything, we want to provide a similar level of facilities. We were able to touch the classrooms. We know we have other challenges that remain, and we're going to work very hard with the superintendent and staff to see if we can address those as well as we go forward. Because I love to say we're done. I think we have a little more work to do, but I do want to say that thank you for this opportunity. And this is one of those places that as my father's son, my father was the one that started with the relationship over here in Robla. This is really a part of his legacy as well, and having to share that with all you guys. This is a place that we're immensely proud of the work we've been able to do here. And I've joked about it, but I am serious that when CSBA is here in Sacramento, we're going to get a school bus. We're going to take delegates from the conference, and we're just going to drive them through Robla, have tours of that. So very, very proud of the work. And thank you very much for the opportunity to serve you guys.
You did a beautiful job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have New Hope Charter School update with Harinder Pagani, Director.
Good evening, Vice President, trustees, superintendent, and staff. I'm going to be brief because otherwise I won't make it through the presentation. There is no New Hope without Dennis Boyd. Okay, let me get into the presentation. I'll come back. So we're launching into year 2, and of course, it is something that we're very excited about, and it's a powerful thing to watch students and staff coming back for year 2 and very excited about it. So these are some of the things that have been happening since the last time I was here in June, and just as we're preparing. Thank you, Elliot. So we've actually had staff reported August 1. So we've been working for the past 2 weeks, really just working relentlessly to really get off to a great start this school year. And this is just a schedule of our first week, August 1 through the 5th. You can see that there's been a lot of time that we've spent on just relationship building just internally with our staff, with our team. As we've added a grade level, we've nearly doubled not only in our student population, but also with our staff. So that's been such an important time for us to really build this time for our teachers and our entire staff to really connect. If we are strong and well connected and know and really build that trust amongst ourselves, that transfers over to our students and our families as well. So we've really been really working through it very methodically, but at the same time, preparing for our students. And so this past week, this is the schedule from this week. And on Tuesday and Wednesday, we actually had our 7th grade students come in for a 2-day orientation before school started. So we did work with our students, just introducing them to their teachers, to one another. They're coming from all the different schools in Robla. And it's been a really powerful experience for them, but also gave us an opportunity before the school year started to have our students come in and really work with us to understand what they're coming in with, what their strengths are, what goals we can set with them. And so now we have a path that we can follow without us trying to figure that out after school starts. So those are some of the things. And then again, just continuing to implement all the systems, strengthening all the different areas for us to really have a great launch to our school year. So launching into year two, it's also about, again, not just what's happening internally with our staff, it's also about reconnecting with our families. One thing that we really enjoyed in our first year was the home visit. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but really just encouraging our connection through technology. And we use a text messaging system that allows us to communicate in multiple languages to our families, because like Robla School District, we have approximately 20 languages spoken at our school, and we're such a small school. So this system that we use allows us to communicate out in English, so I can send a text message out, but the parents can choose the language that they receive it in, and it actually translates quite well. So parents have been connecting with our teachers fairly quickly, and that's allowed us, again, to really set things up for success. So our advisors are like our homeroom teachers, so they continue to lead that communication with families. And then I mentioned the 7th grade orientation, but tomorrow our 8th grade students actually will show up as well. They're going to come pick up their schedules, they're going to choose their electives. And, you know, we talked a lot last year about music and dance and theater and all the things that they did that really students gave us feedback that they want more of. And so they get to choose those electives tomorrow. And then continuing with home visits, we really experienced that in such a powerful way last year, even as we were trying to be as safe as possible in doing those. This year, families have, both 7th and 8th grade families have welcomed us back. I just came from a home visit myself with one of our families, and that's such a powerful experience for not only for the family, the student in particular, but also for us as a staff, that we get out of our comfort zone and we go out into the community. And when teachers and staff who have not done these home visits come back, it's just a powerful conversation, listening to their perspective now as compared to maybe some assumptions they made about our community. And so that is something that, again, we will continue throughout this school year, probably through November is when we will finish having visited every single one of our families. And then we'll do a back to school learning night. We will do, I think it's going to be a math and science focus for us in early September. So in about 3 more weeks. So the home visits, again, how we connect matters. And so that, as I said, is something that we're continuing to do and will do. And for some of our families now, this is really something that they look forward to. So the back to school night is great, but this is really seems to be what they look forward to. What we're doing after the visit, the home visit, that's important too. So one of the things that we're, with new staff who may not be familiar with Robla, the community, we're trying to really help folks understand that this is a community with a lot of assets as well. What are those assets? So every time we go out for a home visit, we come back, we have a large map in our office, and our staff will come back and they will do this asset mapping activity. So we're looking at, where in Robla, what do you see in Robla throughout the community? And throughout the year, this will be something that we continue to map out, right? And so we're looking at, where they come in, they add a sticky dot, like this is the community center here or a park there. And so we just want to recognize, again, the assets in the community. So our staff really begin to look at the community from an assets perspective, as well as therefore looking at our students and families with the same mindset. And then we did, as I said, the 7th grade orientation. This is just a lot of text, not a lot of pictures. So, but just wanted to show the level of detail our teachers are, going to, and our staff and our leadership team, and just working, just really to make sure our students have a really positive and productive experience, especially when students have their first experience with us. Okay, and this was our ongoing effort. I always give you updates, and so I will do that again tonight. We have approximately 240 students now enrolled in grades 7 and 8, so we're very excited about that. We continue to enroll students pretty much on a daily basis. We have like one or two students enroll, and we'll continue to do that because sometimes, we don't always have everyone show up, even though they might be enrolled. So the enrollment will continue even after the first day of school through August, and as necessary, if families are interested in joining New Hope, our doors are open to serve. Okay, and again, these are some of our class of 2032 students. These are our 7th graders, but we talk to them as the class of 2032 because that's the year they'll graduate from university. Only 10 years away, but they can always graduate sooner. Save a little tuition. So
Making me feel old.
all right. So thank you to each of you as well for all your support. And I will pause here and answer any questions.
Any questions?
Congratulations on completing your first year.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Thank you. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to the Robla Resilience Project Report.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the board, the vice president, the superintendent, and all the guest attendants. We're really happy to be back here on our second night, or our second year of reporting on the Robla Resilience Project. I already set off an alarm. That's air conditioning. Okay. First off, I want to start off by offering our condolences, Sisterhood for Equity, in terms of the loss that you've had. And it sounds like this was, Dennis was just an amazing individual. We had an opportunity to be here last year and present to him. And it sounds like he really left a legacy and the sense of community, given that my sisters and I have been in many very different types of school districts. It's really hopeful for us to be able to see that sense of community here. So our deepest condolences.
And I had the opportunity to interview him last year as I interviewed you. And I remember when I was calculating the mean time of the interviews, his was like triple everybody else's because he gave me like the history of the board and the history of the community. And it was just really clear from the time that we spent on Zoom how committed he was to this community.
So I'm Norma Jimenez Hernandez and my sister Margarita Jimenez Silva, and we represent Sisterhood for Equity Consulting. Just as a background, and for those of you who are listening at home, we're former classroom teachers. We have been in K through 12 grade settings. We hold master's and doctoral degrees from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, a JD degree, law degree from Loyola Law School, and a master's in public policy from UCLA. We have, I think it's over 70 years combined experience in K through 12 and higher education. So we come with very deep roots. We come with a rich background in qualitative and quantitative research skills, and we've been both in the public and the private sector. We come with that experience. We come also with the lens of knowing that we're here as external evaluators. So our job is to be able to look at, did the goals that were set out in the Robla Resilience Project, were they met? To what extent were they met? What are some recommendations we have? What worked? What didn't work? Where's the room for growth? Where's the room for improvement? So we are 4 sisters, if you notice the similarity. I won't say who's older, but our group has been focused on we actually do professional development as well, but our role here is looking at it from an external evaluation lens. Again, what goals did the project have? Were they met? What did it look like last year? Did we see growth from the previous year? We're really invested, having served in the public sector and the private sector. We know that funds allocated for different projects are really important, and they are in short supply in many places. And so, to what extent is there diligence in terms of how those funds are spent? And we want to make sure that they are being put to good use. So, as external evaluators in year two, we participate in the leadership meetings in 21-22. That's not something that all evaluators do. We're committed to that because we think it's important that it adds context in terms of us understanding the project. Our work is done through an evaluation lens, and we are confident that I would say 99.9% confident that in terms of a peer review process, that it would stand up to that level of review. So our roles, we wear hats, not only through our company, but also professionally in higher education, looking at K through 12 settings and higher ed as well. So we are confident that if somebody took our data, they'd be able to come up with the same conclusions that we did. That is our wheelhouse, that's where we come from. And so I just wanted to set that in as a context. So part of what we were contracted to do in conjunction with the leadership team from the Robla Resilience Project is to develop surveys, administer and analyze survey data, develop interview protocols, conduct and analyze interview transcript, present data, and then we have a complete report and an infographic for the board and for the public to examine as well. So what were our data points for 21-22? So in October, we did a pre-survey of RRP participants. Actually, it was sent out to everyone, not just RRP participants, so even people who didn't intend to participate. And then in March, we had this developmental sprint. We had a pre-survey of the developmental sprint. In April, a post-survey of the developmental sprint. And for those of you who do not remember, the developmental sprint was this very intense experience that participants go through to enact or take risk in terms of addressing some of the goals within the Robla Resilience Project for year two, and you'll see that in just a second. And then we had a post-survey for participants in June of 2022, and then we have this qualitative piece of it, which were the interviews that we were conducted with administrators, teacher specialists, the CRAs who are ambassadors, and classified staff. If at any point you have any questions and some of this terminology is unclear, you don't remember, please let me know. There are 3 years to this proposed project. The first year, if you remember from last year, was this novice tier. And the goal of the project last year was curating a safe space for anti-racist conversation. The second year, which is the year that we're in right now, that's what we're going to talk about, countering and redressing a legacy of racism. How? By exploring best practices for modeling and applying anti-racist beliefs and behaviors, as well as dismantling racist curricula. The third tier, the advanced stage, is enacting an equitable racist society, a full examination of district policies, looking at behavior, curricula, achievement, and hiring practices as well. So we're not there yet. What we're going to look at is year two. I want to just give a brief summary of what we found from last year, from year one. So the goal was to curate a safe space for anti-racist conversations. 72% of participants who filled out the survey said we agreed or strongly agreed that this goal was accomplished. So that was a tier one. There was a safe environment. 3 out of 4 people said there was a safe environment. We're really proud of the work that we did this year. This was a useful activity. We had a shared language to talk about racism, what that meant, and the amount of time that we spent on the project. 9 out of 10 people agreed or strongly agreed with that. So this year, we're doing this middle tier, exploring best practices of modeling and applying anti-racist behaviors and beliefs, and then dismantling the curricula. And again, 72% of people agreed or strongly agreed that the tier for the goal one last year was achieved. So I first want to give you a rundown of who completed the survey. And I have this set up as a pre and a post. So the pre was October 2021, and the post was June 2022. So we had 61 people, or approximately 20.3% of the staff here in the Robla School District completed the survey in October. We had 15.7% for the post survey. 47% of people who completed the survey say, I plan to participate in the Robla Resilience Project. It was voluntary for this year. Of those who completed the survey in June, 74% participated, which means that 26% of people did not. So our survey captured people who didn't participate in all of the sessions. I want to make that clear, because this is not just simply preaching to the choir, right? And everyone who filled out the survey participated in the professional development. The CRAs are these ambassadors who get exposed to the curriculum of professional development ahead of time, and they lead these sessions of other professionals in the district as well. So about 30%, 29.5% filled out the pre-survey, 38.3% filled out the post-survey. And just to give you a sense, we had a good mix of different professionals. I just pulled out the teachers, but we had teachers, administrators, staff, classified staff. So we kind of made sure that there was a balance there. We didn't want all classroom teachers. We didn't want just administrators filling out the survey. And 67% of females, 60% of females in the post survey, which is reflective of the district. So to this first question was, did we meet the goal of exploring the best practices for modeling and applying anti-racist beliefs and behaviors? So 60%, or 6 out of 10 people said, yes, I agree, or I strongly agree that this goal was met. We had a few setbacks. I have to say that, this was a really difficult year for people. So I'm really actually happy to see this as 60%, because we had some times when we didn't meet. There were, I think, a lot of challenges that are not unique to Robla, but throughout the country, we were seeing this in K through 12 schools, in K through 6 schools, in middle schools, in higher ed as well. And you addressed some of that earlier in terms of the mental health crisis. So there was, and Margarita will talk a bit more about this, but one of the most difficult years that teachers have had inside the classroom and outside of the classroom as well. So to see that 6 out of 10 people said, yes, we met this goal on top of all the responsibilities that they had. And then we had 9 out of 10 people strongly agreed that there was a clear understanding of racist behavior. 91.5% agreed strongly that there's a clear understanding of racist language. That becomes a basis for being able to address that second goal. So I think there was a lot of learning that was happening, and we saw that reflected in the survey. The second goal in Tier 2 was, to what extent did we dismantle racist curricula, did the professional development dismantle racist curricula? 49% of people, or about half of the people who responded, agreed or strongly agreed that this goal was achieved in Tier 2. We also had, and I just pulled out, we had a very, very long survey, an intensive survey, but I wanted to pull out some of this data. 76%, or 3 out of 4 people, agreed that there's a shared anti-racist language in the Robla School District. And just to point that out, I mean, these numbers are really high, and that, I think, reflects the work from last year and the investment that people had in this project from last year. 55%, or slightly more than half, agree that there's a safe environment for anti-racist conversation at Robla School District. And then this I thought was really interesting. 8 out of 10 people agreed or strongly agreed that the project resulted in more positive changes. And you're going to see a little bit closer look at that in terms of what was going in the classroom, as well as what was happening inside this classroom. So this personal development that people are going through, and that trickles down in terms of classroom behavior and in the district. We had this question that we asked last year as well. When you talk about race in the district, you feel, and I made a word cloud that shows all the words that people felt. So curious, comfortable, fine, hopeful, uncomfortable, annoyed, empowered, right? And then we coded it for positive, neutral, or negative words. And what we saw in comparing the, that should say June 22nd, the post-survey to the pre-survey. So did we see any growth in this? And the answer is yes. And what I'm looking at is comparing here the orange and the blue graph. So you look at positive. So in the pre-survey, 41% of people had a positive comment to say to this question of, when I talk about race, I feel blank, and you get to fill that in. And in the post-survey in June, 62% of people gave a positive comment. Should that say June 2022? Yes, sir. It should say June 2022. Thank you. It should say June 2022. And really where they moved was from this neutral comment, right? So there's this neutralness. I'm not quite sure how I feel about when I'm talking about race. I guess it's okay. It's fine. Unsure was a word that came up. And they moved into this positive column. The negative comments pretty much stayed the same. We don't see a difference there, but we see a more positive perspective in terms of when you're talking about race. How do you feel about that? And that is hopeful to talk about. You know, one of the things that is done in the professional development through this project is to push people out of their comfort zone. That's one of the things we ask students to do. That's one of the things that we ask communities to do, to go into this learning zone and this growth zone. And if you notice from that chart, they got to go from the comfort zone through the fear zone of being able to talk about things that are uncomfortable, of being able to grow. I have two teenagers and a tween myself, and I can tell you that in times of stretching them, and I know it's good for them, it's not always fun. And sometimes there's tears, and sometimes there's pushback. But that is part of growing, and that is part of stretching as well. So where did we see the changes? Well, we saw it in what respondents said about the curricular changes. So 76.6%, or 3 out of 4 people, intentionally sought out anti-racist curriculum. When we asked them, hey, did you do this because of the project? Of those people who said that they sought out, 97.3% said they did so because of the project. 78.7% say they intentionally implemented anti-racist curriculum. And almost 90%, almost 9 out of 10, 89.2% did so because of their experience in the project. That is an effect, a positive effect of the project in terms of what is being presented in the classroom. We have this, we asked these questions about whether they believe that the project should continue, were they glad that there was another year, were they stretched in their understanding, and were they proud of the work that they accomplished. And so these are the percentage of people who agreed or strongly agreed is in the orange. And then that kind of pinkish mauve color on the right is a percent that were unsure. And remember, this includes people who did not participate and people who did participate as well. And so we saw these numbers, we saw this ambivalence, I call it ambivalence, that they're just not quite sure. They weren't sure whether they believe the project continued, glad there was another year, were they stretched in their understanding. And when I remove that ambivalence in the sense of, okay, let's just take into account the people who either say agreed, strongly agreed, or disagreed, strongly disagreed, what does that look like? And removing that ambivalence, now we see that that number jumps up. So 85% believe that the project should continue, 78% glad they were glad that there was another year, 83% said that they were stretched in their understanding, and 83% said that they were proud of the work that was accomplished. And you see on here the percent that disagreed with that as well, either disagreed or strongly disagreed, but an overwhelming sense of this is really good work. Let's continue to do this despite the stretching, despite the sometimes I'm not sure, I'm a little afraid, this is going to be uncomfortable. That's okay. These ambassadors that we have, these individuals who serve this secondary role, I also want to see, well, how does that work out? Because you have these people who are being exposed to the professional development twice, and they're having to be leaders within their community. So there's this more buy-in from them, right? There's a greater investment in time that I believe that this work is important. And if you look at the difference between the non-CRAs, we call them CRAs, and the CRAs, right, a higher percentage of them agreed or strongly agreed in terms of the belief that the work should continue, glad that they were here another year, stretched in their understanding, proud of the work accomplished. And I have to tell you that not all the CRAs said strongly agree and agree. We had some CRAs that were critical of the project. We had some people who didn't. I mean, those numbers are not at 100%, but they are higher. So this investment of time and energy, right, in something that you believe in matters. And if you've ever played a sport or if you've played a musical instrument, been invested in something, your role as a school board, you know that the more time you invest, and you say, okay, I know we still have some things to work on, but this work is important and we believe in it. I wanted to find out if how they participated, their enthusiasm and participation in the project mattered or not. So this is a pie chart of the people breakdown. And this question, did you participate in the Robla Resilience Project this year? Yes, enthusiastically. That was about 13%. Yes, maybe not enthusiastically, close to half. Yes, I didn't think I would participate, but I ended up participating. That was 6.3%. No, I plan to participate. I was not able to do so. There's just still people that are interested, but for various reasons, we had some people with COVID ended up dropping out. They just had a lot on their plate for a variety of reasons. It kind of ran the gamut. No, I never intended to participate. And I wanted to see, does participation matter? So I pulled out by the people who said no, but I wanted to, right? I wasn't able to, but I wanted to. And then yes. And so if you see the gray and the orange charts, right? The gray and the orange bars, you have this really high percentage of people who agreed or strongly agreed that they were glad there was another year, they were stretching in their understanding, and they were proud of the work that they were accomplished. The blues are the people who said, no, I don't want to participate this year. 17% agreed or strongly agreed that they were glad there was another year. 33% said that they were stretching their understanding. These are people who did not participate, but they were stretching their understanding. They were proud of, and 70% proud of the work accomplished. So what I believe is happening is you're having this trickle down effect. Because what's happening is you're having a change in the culture. You're moving the Titanic to a certain extent, because changing a culture is really, really difficult to do. And so you're seeing this shift, and even the people are saying, no, I don't want to participate for whatever reason, or I'm not too enthusiastic about it. We're still having some of them. For the stretch in my understanding, 1 out of 3 people who didn't participate were still stretched in their understanding. And that's pretty empowering, I think, because you're beginning to see this trickle-down effect, or this change in the district overall. Our big takeaways are that it's been a very challenging year, right? The context really matters in terms of the mental health of not only the students and the families, but the teachers, teaching professionals in this country. And that's been documented in this past year. We saw that the Tier 2 goals were met in terms of exploring best practices for modeling and applying anti-racist behaviors and beliefs and dismantling racist curricula. We also think that there is more action that's needed. So willing to speak up. We saw more people willing to speak up, willing to take charge. So taking ownership of the project. That is not just coming from up, but this is our project. And this is our goal here, to create a district that's different for our students. I mean, you spoke about equity earlier today, and that's what this project is about. This project is about equity. That is the civil rights issue that we're dealing with. The CRAs were more positive, and we had some agreement that maybe there should be some sessions that should be mandated too. And Margarita's going to talk a little bit more about that as well.
So I did the qualitative part of this project. We had 10 participants who agreed to be interviewed, 3 CRAs, 3 staff, 2 teachers, 1 specialist, and 1 principal. Each of the interviews lasted between 25 and 60 minutes. They were done via Zoom. 9 were recorded and transcribed. 1 individual asked that only notes be taken, and they did not consent to be recorded. So that's the data that we're looking at. Overall, out of the 10 participants, 10 believe that, again, this is a subsample of the folks that Norma was speaking about. 10 believe Tier 1 was met. 10 emphasized that the work needs to be continued. 8 out of 10 commented on this idea that 21-22 is especially challenging for them. 7 out of 10 said that they would appreciate more time with peers to address specific issues within their roles. So there were a few individuals who said, meeting with teachers, I'm not a teacher, and meeting with teachers isn't helping me understand how to best implement what I'm learning. And so they asked for that, or that came up. And the next steps that came out of those interviews was, can we spend more time talking about how this work applies directly with students and with families? Also thinking about differentiating for people that are different understandings of racial issues. So we get new folks every year. How are we bringing those folks up to speed, or folks that need a little bit more time to think about these issues, and then going deeper. The issue of time, that came up last year too, that we're going 50 miles an hour and all of a sudden we have to stop. So that came up as well. So just a couple quotes, and I'm not going to read all of these, but a couple of quotes about how context matters. The third one there, since coming back from COVID, it was rough. It was really, really rough. And that teacher went on to talk about all the things that she had to deal with, all the fires she had to put out this year that were necessary part of what she had to do last year. So those first 3 quotes are around COVID and the COVID context that we've been in. The last one talks about the racial climate that we've been in. With this political climate that we've been experiencing the last 6 years, it's just so important that we're having these discussions. You can't, and I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. You can't escape all of these issues. It impacts everything that everybody does every day. So I think it's really important to be talking about race, to be talking about how we're handling these issues, to be working on as individuals. It's just one of the most important things that we can do. And that's from one of the CRAs. So when we're talking about context, we're talking about the COVID context, but also the racial, cultural context that we're in right now. As far as whether goals were accomplished, yes, again, all of them agreed that the goals had been accomplished. Time to think about, and not just about race, but there were conversations about abilities. So thinking about diversity in lots of different ways. They talked about the value. Jackie, who's a specialist in the district, talked about, and again, these are all pseudonyms, just in case you're wondering. These are all particular stories they're stories that have been shared in small groups that allowed people to learn about each other and have more empathy in a lot of ways towards each other. As Norma mentioned, one of the big takeaways from both the survey and the qualitative was that last year was a lot about thinking about these issues. This year was a lot about actions. These are the things that we did. So again, Gary said last year was about opening up and learning. This year is a deeper understanding. And a lot of folks talked about this idea that it's not just about relationships at work that have been impacted, but this is also going home. Conversations that I'm having with relatives, with neighbors, with folks that I know outside of the context of Robla. There were 3 of the individuals that I interviewed that talked about what happened with Black History Month essay contest this year. And that in the past, there had been just a handful of teachers that had their students submit proposals for this. This year, there were 12 to 13 that had never done it before. And how there were conversations about the topics that could be addressed. And one of the teachers shared that she had a white student who decided she wanted to write about things she had witnessed, racism she had witnessed on the playground, and she was too scared to speak up, but now she was feeling empowered to say something about what she was seeing. I didn't put the rest of the quote in, but the rest of the story goes that she ended up being one of the winners of the contest. And a few weeks later, the mom came in and had a conversation with Casey, the teacher, about how her daughter had been telling her about things that she was seeing, but she wasn't being brave and standing up. And the parents said to the teacher and the daughter in this conversation, what would your teacher do? Your teacher is taking risks and speaking about these things. You committed to it. You need to as well. And so again, this idea that it's not just, it's trickling down, as Norma said. It's trickling down to the kids and it's trickling down to the parents. This is a way long story, and we're happy to share these slides. But this also had to do with Casey, who participated in the sprint and challenged herself to have tough conversations with her kids about race. And the kids asked if they could have these conversations at home as well. And she said, if you feel safe doing that, feel free to do that. I'm not going to make you, but if you feel free, go ahead and do that. And a few of the kids came back the next day and said, oh my God, I spoke to my parents about this. And I had no idea that they believed the things that they believe in terms of, I thought they were going to say you can't marry someone who's this race or that race. But they said all they want, they don't care who I marry, they just want me to be happy. And it was, again, transformative. And the teacher got feedback from the parents that they were happy that they were having those conversations at home as well as at school. In terms of the work that needs to continue, it does. Again, all of the teachers and the specialists and the staff that we interviewed talked about how they want to focus more on implementing it and the actions. So how are we going to bring this into the classroom? How are we going to bring this to the parents and the families that we're working with? A lot of them spoke really highly about the sprint too and how transformative that was. And can we have more opportunities for our colleagues to engage in the sprints? Another theme that arose was intentional groupings and going into these deeper dives, again, because of the issue of time. So again, teachers want time with teachers, staff want time with staff. So in addition to the mixed groups, having more intentional time with folks that share similar roles. And again, just having more time to talk about it. Oftentimes, I talked about we run out of time. So more time. And again, this goes back to the same issue I was talking about, connecting to students, families, and communities. The The principal that we interviewed talked about how the goal is to create anti-racist environments so that the kids leave and go out into the world with these ideas. But we need to then think about, okay, how does this apply to my classroom like tomorrow? Can we brainstorm about that? I also wanted to highlight that we presented this work as in Robla, presented this work at two of the leading conferences, national and international conferences. So ARA is the largest national conference, usually about 20,000. It's the premier international conference for educational research. And we presented on this work and it was very well received. And then we also presented at NAME, which is the National Association of Multicultural Education. And what's wonderful about that conference is that it's got a lot of different stakeholders. It's families, organizers, not just educators. So again, well received. Some actionable recommendations that we have is, overwhelmingly, we are seeing that the work should continue, that perhaps this year is voluntary, perhaps there's some mandatory meetings, 2 or 3 during the year where you could really concentrate the work that needs to be done, especially around the curriculum. Targeted sessions, again, for just administrators or staff and time to go deeper. And then again, overwhelmingly, we heard more opportunities for others to go through the sprint.
So what we're seeing is this changing of the culture, as I mentioned earlier, and again, this trickle down effect, even from people who are not 100% on board, which is really hopeful to see, I have to say. We wanted to end with this quote by Jane Goodall. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. So our teachers, Robla's teachers, staff, everyone who works here impacts children. Whether you see children every single day for 8 hours or not. And I think this project, our professional opinion is that this project is making a difference in ways that we couldn't have imagined from the very beginning, because it is having this trickle down effect, and it is having an influence even with people who still continue to feel uncomfortable. That's expected. That's going to happen. But we're seeing some really positive effects. And nationally, internationally, because of the presentation at the conference, Robla is seen as a leader now in terms of what can happen in districts that perhaps have a more diverse group of students in terms of ability, in terms of socioeconomic status, in terms of ethnic makeup as well. And I think that's really, really inspiring to see the community here being leaders and showing other districts and other places in this country about what is possible. Thank you. I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. Questions? Comments?
How many total employees do we have? 300. So out of 300, 61 participated in the pre-survey. Was it 47?
47, yes, sir.
47 participated in the post. How many people who participated in the post were people who did not participate in the whole program?
I think we have that up there. Well, it's difficult to say to a certain extent, and I'll tell you why. Where is it? So in the post, 26% of people did not participate.
Okay, so 26%
People who
of people
responded
did not participate. So that's, what does that then put us? Somewhere around 30 some odd people actually participated out of 300 employees. So about 10% of the overall employees.
Yeah.
I'm finding it hard to find it. I'm finding it hard to identify substantive analysis when less than 10% of our overall employees participated. I think the very fact that such a huge percentage of our employees opted not to participate also says something about their concerns relating to the program. I have to be honest, because I participated in all but I think one of the sessions, and I was very concerned because some of the things like about like the concept of growth. The concept of growth is eventually you're going to agree with us. And as you agree more with us or with the teaching of the curriculum, which is anti-racism, white supremacy, white privilege, oppressor versus oppressed dynamics. Unless you agreed with that, then that was not seen as growth. Conversations where someone brought up a disagreement with that was seen as resistance. And when you look through a lot of the teachings and a lot of the writings, that's seen as resistance. That's not seen or taught of or thought about as real conversation. The goal of the conversation is to get people to agree. I agree, and I really would like to see. I mean, I think we first of all, we were doing resilience long before we started the anti-racism training.
Yes.
And I, for one, thought the way in which we were doing it and the way in which we were focusing on it really did a lot, and really did a lot to bring our community together. In my opinion, what we've been doing the last 2 years, there are some aspects of it that are really good and have brought people together and have really helped to add to the discussion. There are some aspects of it that are very divisive. And I think we've seen those conversations both outside of Robla, and we see those conversations within Robla. If there is a way to have these sorts of conversations and get rid of the stuff that is the divisive part, because I think teaching kids that if you are white, then you are inherently racist or you are racist is wrong. I do, because I think it treats people as a group and not as individuals. And I think when we talk about equity, the concept of equity in education is about giving students what they need, right? Not just about it, but what we're talking about doing is not giving students what they need, like the individual student, Johnny, Mary, Joseph, or whoever the students are. It's about categorizing them via race, and then saying, because you are a member of that race, this is what you need. And I think that just works contrary to what we should be doing as educators. Anyway, that's my perspective. That's what I've seen in what we've been doing. I think that when you look at the data here, what it tells you is a small percentage of our staff have actually participated in it, and even of that small percentage that participated in it, not all of them, especially those who are not CRAs, necessarily feel like it was a benefit.
So one of the things that I did for this participation matters of whether they participated, they didn't participate, they didn't participate, but they wanted to participate, or they did participate, is I actually ran some analysis to see if these were significant. So what that means in layman's term, in terms of being statistically significant, it means that I'm very, very confident that based on the sample that we took, that if we took another sample from Robla, we would still find these differences.
How big was the sample? I mean, how big does a sample have to be considered statistically significant?
Well, that's a really good question. So we try to shoot for 60 people in a sample. However, if you find statistical significance with a really small sample, the differences have to be pretty big for it to be statistically significant. So you can get a sample of 10 people. Your difference has to be pretty large for it to be statistically significant. If you have a sample of 500 people, you could probably still find that significance with a really small difference, because we believe that the sample represents the population. Now, you can't handpick necessarily the people to do that. And so these differences here are statistically significant, which means that there is a difference here in the way that people do, in the way that we perceive. So I am very, very confident that the numbers that we see here is what is happening with the district. If there weren't significant differences, what we call statistically significant differences, and what that means is that there's a less than 5% probability that we would have found these differences by chance. So when I say I'm pretty confident that this is actually what's going on. Now, everyone did have the opportunity to fill out the survey, okay? And in fact, we gave out Amazon gift cards for people to fill out the survey to do that. It was anonymous. We didn't collect their emails or anything along those lines. Last year we had A couple of people who had very negative comments who filled out the survey twice. So that happened only on one occasion this time. So somebody who really wanted to say something negative filled out the surveys twice, and we could see that it was from the same address. So I'm very confident that even though the sample is small, so in order to find some differences, the difference had to be large in order for it to be significant. And that was actually the case. And I think, with the exception of one at all the trainings, and with all due respect, I don't remember anyone saying that white people are inherently X, Y, or Z. I think there is a framework that's presented in terms of understanding. I'm a big Peloton junkie. You all know Peloton? I hate to sweat. I hate it. I get all dirty and stinky, but I have to sweat because then I know that I'm really working out. And even though it's really uncomfortable for me at the beginning, I'm really glad when I get to the end of it. But it takes me a lot to get on there. But I know that it's making a difference in terms of, and I look at my numbers, my blood pressure, my weight, and all these other stats that I keep. And that's why we collect statistics, so we can see, well, is it making a difference? Do we see a difference, yes or no? So even though the sample is small, and I'll be very honest with you, that when I looked at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're not going to find any differences because the sample is just really small. But I have run data sets where we have, not at this district, but in other places, where we have a sample of 15 or 20, and the difference is large enough that we can say, yes, I'm confident that this is what's happening in the school district. This is what's happening in the sample. This is what's happening in the population.
With all due respect, though, what you're talking about is a survey. Now, if we surveyed people when they got off the Peloton bicycle about how they felt, we might get a different reaction. They might say, "Oh yeah, I feel great," but until you actually go and you look at their body mass index, their body fat ratio, the reduction and the change in their heart rate, when you actually not look at how people feel, but actually look at the actual outcome, that's when you know whether or not you've made a difference. And the challenge I have here is everything you're talking about is a survey about how someone feels, about how people feel. And not whether or not, for example, we don't know, we didn't do a test to find out, do people really know or understand or have a better understanding of the language surrounding anti-racism than they did before? Did we do a vocabulary test beforehand? And then did we do one after to see if people had a better understanding? No, we didn't. We did a survey to ask them if they thought they knew more. How many people are going to say, yeah, I mean, imagine if we let our students tell us how they felt about the material that they learned in math class today, right? How many of them are going to tell us, no, I really didn't learn anything today? Once again, I'm having a hard time finding value in both the work as well as your analysis of the work.
With all due respect, last year we actually did a survey where we looked at whether people had increased their knowledge in the vocabulary. That's actually what we did. We asked them about these different words and to what extent did they feel that they knew these words. It was a list of about 30 different words. And we saw an increase. We saw a significant increase.
Did you test them on what's the meaning of this word? What's the meaning of this word? Did you just ask them, do you know the meaning of the word? See, that's the difference.
It was more, with all due respect, it was more nuanced than that. We asked them to what extent, how confident do you feel in knowing this word? Those were the knowledge questions, and it was what we call a Likert scale. So do you feel or not? And I've worked with enough teachers in enough districts that, and we have used the survey, it's the KCU survey, in many, many different contexts. We know that it's a valid measure. We know that it's a reliable measure. And having talked with some of the teachers in terms and the CRAs in terms of the groups, I'm pretty confident that I respect the professionalism of the teachers in the Robla School District, that they would be honest, because there's no reason for them not to be honest. And so what we saw in the pre-survey last year, year one, where we did test them about the knowledge, right? We had teachers say, I have no idea what that word means. I don't know what it means. I wouldn't be able to define it for you. And then we saw this growth over time. I don't think there's a motivation, and in our work we haven't found that there's a motivation for teachers at that large scale to fabricate information, to fabricate their learning. After all, they're educators, so they're in the business of teaching and learning. And so I think it would be hypocritical for them, and it would be disrespectful for me to think that they would not be honest. And in our interactions with teachers in terms of, and administrators and other staff, I would have to say, in terms of the qualitative interviews, we saw that that data was also supporting that growth over time. And so we're able to see, and especially the developmental sprint. We didn't talk about a lot about the developmental sprint, but that's really where we're seeing that growth, that people are really taking the risk, where they're really having these deep conversations about what do these words mean. And they're not doing it not only here, but also at home and in their communities. And that's really powerful. So we're not in the business necessarily. And when we do the KCU, the knowledge, competence, usefulness, we don't have necessarily people give us a definition. We think that's a bit, I don't think that does a service for them in terms of the profession. We have other ways to measure that. And because other people have used this and we have used it, we know it's a reliable and valid measure to test our knowledge. And we haven't found that people have necessarily lied about that. So there is a way to, go into the classroom. I think that's really intrusive. I've been a classroom teacher, and there's a lot of performance that sometimes happens when you're being observed. I'm going to trust teachers that we're able to see that if they said they sought out anti-racist curriculum, and it was because of the project, or they intentionally implemented anti-racist curriculum. And I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning. When you have a limited number of funds and how they're being used, and in my experience and Margarita's experience within K through 12 public school districts, people are really keeping an eye on that. And so they want to make sure that whatever they're engaging in is worth their time and it's worth the district's money in that regard. And so for them, it was this worth our time in doing so? And I would have to say, based on the data, it was an overwhelming yes. And in fact, what we heard was, we want to continue to do this, but at a deeper level, perhaps a restructuring of, instead of having a 1 hour session, maybe having, 3 or 4 hours. But this is another thing that we found. We didn't present it today, but here's another thing that we found. We found that people were taking this work and they were diving deeper into it. Mostly were the sprint participants, but other people as well. So when you really want to learn something, when you're committed to something and you really want to explore it, then you're going to take that deeper dive, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. You're going to invest yourself in that. And it is a growing phase. I would disagree that it's all about just agreeing with the people. I have been in the classroom myself as a college professor. I oversee a program now, but it's not about agreeing with me. And this is what I would tell my students. I don't want you to come into this classroom and just say yes, 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 because nobody learns. Nobody grows in that. It is about, let's, tell me what you're feeling, tell me where you're at, and let's try to tackle these issues together.
With all due respect, I still have an issue because, while I think the challenge is that, first of all, you had people participate in the work who really want to see the work continue. And then you have evaluators who really want to see the work continue. The problem is that I think that what happens is it's not that people are encouraged to lie, but people want to present information in such a way that they believe in this, they want to see it, they believe in it, and they want to see it continue. Or some people want to see it continue. And it's presented in the information that is presented. And I think I brought up some very valid concerns, both last year when you did your presentation, as well as this year when you've in doing your presentation, that demonstrates that a large percentage of our community, just our staff community in particular, just is not participating. And what we have is we have a small percentage of folks who want to see the work continue. And I'm all for continuing. I'm all for the work continuing. What I would like to see going into the future is, one, I think we need to look at both new and different service providers for both the presentation of the content as well as the evaluation of it. What I'd like to see for me personally going forward is I'd like to see the content, the information, and the plan put forward ahead of time, as opposed to basically receiving it piecemeal. We didn't even receive it piecemeal. We received it as it was being presented. I had a major issue and a major concern with that. It's why I didn't support the continuation of the contract for this year, and that's why I have a very difficult time and don't know that I would continue it, at least with the same service providers going forward. With all due respect, I appreciate the work that you're doing. but I have some major concerns with the information that you've provided regarding this project and the Robla School District.
Noted.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to put out there that anything that opens up dialogue and makes people look internally and change their attitudes or behavior is a positive. I necessarily can't follow your data because, as Craig said, it is a small sample size and people got to pick if they participated or not, so not a lot of people did. But I think that we need to, instead of like, oh, 9 out of 10 or 6 out of 8 people, instead we need to look at how our schools are changing and how curriculum is changing or things like that. So how things are actually occurring or the actions are happening from the dialogue would be a much better test of how beneficial it is. But like I said, anything that opens dialogue and makes anybody know, no matter who they are, maybe look internally and realize, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that, or oh, I need to work on that. You know, it's not a bad thing. So anything with dialogue is always good.
Yes, sir.
Clearly, you have someone who disagrees with you. I enjoyed listening to both of you speak. I was really close over here. It was really loud. But I enjoyed hearing you speak because I was sitting there thinking, okay, I want to say this and I want to say that, and the things that you said were really in line with what I would have said, but you said it much more articulately. So I was glad to hear that. So I'm going to make a few comments. I won't be as verbose as my colleagues because I don't think anyone can. I found based on what I know about statistics, and I'm not a statistician, but I do try to make sure that I'm up on statistics and being statistically sound and having a good sample size. But based on what I know, even with these numbers, these are statistically sound. So I think that your results are good. So I appreciate that. I disagree with saying that 90% of people, if 90% of people didn't participate, that means that they disagree with the program. If 90% of people didn't participate, based on what I know, if someone disagrees with something, they're going to say something about that. You know, and we have a whole country worth of evidence that show that. So if someone did participate, but they disagree with it, they would make that known, that opinion known, especially in a district like Robla, where we have worked really hard to make sure that people feel comfortable expressing their opinions. And I really think that people know that if they disagree with us, we want to hear about it because that's how we're going to grow. So I don't believe that because 90% of the people didn't participate, that they disagree with the program. We can ask different questions. We can ask the kind of questions that Trustee DeLuce proposed. But based on the questions that you asked in your survey, it clearly shows that the people who did participate did find value in it, and that, to me, that's a good thing. You know, when you get that many people, and yeah, it's not a huge percentage of our total number of employees, but it does show that people find it valuable, and they're using it, and they want it to continue. I like that. I think that if more people did participate, or if we did make it mandatory, I think we would just see the same results with a larger sample size. So I'm fairly confident in that. So again, not to be as verbose, I enjoyed this, and I think this clearly shows why boards are effective because you're going to get a diversity of opinions. That's why we have 5, and that's why we hold votes on things and we move forward. And I'm glad that Trustee DeLuce clearly feels comfortable to state his opinion, and I'm glad that we have other here to state our opinions. So I just want to say thank you.
Can I request a question to ask if we do this next year? Can you ask for like a paragraph or something to how people implemented what they learned into what they were doing? Like either in the classroom or how they implemented things that they learned. So that way it's like a...
Could, and we definitely include that in the interview questions. Well, what we found in the KCUs, and I've been using KCU for, 20 years now, is when we do ask the definitions and we say, can you write, especially teachers find that offensive and they don't do it. So we have lots of KCUs that we've delivered where we say, well, can you distinguish between anti-racist and anti-this? Or, you know, can you write the definition? And they won't. We're all strapped for time. We just don't get the kind of rich data that you would hope. If you do it in an interview and they can just tell you about it, they do. And I'll tell you that all the teachers and the CRAs that were interviewed as part of the 10 gave very specific examples, long examples, like the one that I didn't read through, but long examples about how they were implementing what they learned. It was a little bit harder for our classified staff who maybe are in an office. One of them said, I'm in a 10 by 10 office all day. I really don't interact with very many people. I haven't implemented it. But in terms of the teachers and the CRAs, they all had examples of how they did it. So we could ask it. We'll see if you know, I think if we do it, then we provide time for them to actually fill it out and get some data that way.
Okay, thank you.
We did have some open-ended questions where we asked them, is there anything else you would like to share? Is there anything else that, you know, so we did get some feedback on that and overwhelmingly positive. We did have some negative feedback, actually using the exact same language about divisiveness, but I would say that that was in the minority, and that was a word that was used, divisiveness. And you know, this work, as I said last year, and I'll repeat again, it is difficult work. It is difficult work to do, and you're going to get some resistance. That is par for the course. Actually, I would be really surprised if you didn't get any pushback. Then I would be like, wait, why are we at 99%? Something's going on here. So I think that's just par for the course in the work that we've done. And we have worked on other projects where our recommendation has been, absolutely do not continue this project. It's there are other issues that you need to tend to. And so we are very committed to this work, but we also want to make sure that it's going to be done well. And if it's not done well, we will let you know. Please know that we will let you know, because we believe that the work needs to have integrity. And at the end of the day, it's the children and the communities that are going to benefit from a well-implemented program, or that are not going to benefit, and that there's going to be some drawbacks. So we can definitely ask that question to ask them, see what they're doing. We'll continue to ask it in the interviews as well. Thank you.
Can I just clarify? I feel like I have 2 points I would like to clarify before we end this agenda item. First of all, that it is incorrect to say that only 10% of the people participated. That 30 number that we're talking about, which is 10% of our employees, are the number of people who completed the survey. So that is not who participated. A much larger than that participate in the group. So I just want to clarify that, number one. And number two is, I feel that I need to clarify that Sisterhood for Equity did the job that we asked them to do. I need to take responsibility if that was the incorrect thing that I asked them to do. That is on me. That is not on them. So I think I want to make sure that that's clear to this community, right? We asked them and we approved what their plan was to evaluate this project. And that's what they presented to the board today. And they have every right to defend that. And if that is not the information that the Robla School District wanted, then that is on me. That is not on them. Okay, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
You did a great job, so if you have anything to apologize for. And if you're taking credit for it, then good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns, spirited or not? No.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to section 6, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to section 7, action items. 7A, approve the Madison Enterprises contract for E-rate services.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
We are happy to answer questions. Mr. Lopez is here. I'm sure he would be happy to. This is an annual contract, and if the board wants more information, we can provide that. But obviously, this is just to remind, this is a federal program of reimbursement for connectivity support.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7B, approval of prime contract change order number 17 to the construction services agreement with Flint Builders for adjustment of costs for the Bell Avenue Elementary School new classroom and administration building.
So moved.
Second.
It's been any comments?
Certainly, this is a contract change order for Flint Builders of the Bell Avenue Elementary project. This change order addresses additional work that had to be performed in the course of construction, primarily the repairs from dry rot as we were replacing the windows in the buildings A, B, and C, the replacement of light fixtures to comply with Title 24, which is energy efficiency. Some of the fixtures that we had in the buildings did not comply with the new regulations, and as part of the DSA approved plans, we had to replace those, or we found that we had to replace some of those as we went through the course construction, and then also some repairs to other types of improvements as we move forward.
Okay, the dry rot that you found, was that kind of standard issue, old age type stuff, or was it something surprising?
Correct. So if you may recall, we've encountered this at Taylor previously. We've encountered it over here at what were formerly the administrative offices over here at Robla. We typically find that around window openings, especially our older windows. And so it's not a surprise that we found some additional structural damage due to that had to be repaired.
Okay. Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7C, approve the 2022-2023 services agreement with Swing Education for substitute teachers.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded.
I'd like Ms. Sullivan. She's going to say a few words about this contract.
Evening, everyone. So what we'd like to do, when I was discussing the renewal of this contract with Superintendent Reyes, we thought we might bring some context to the value of this program. So as you're aware, this program actually is a guest teacher and also guest instructional assistant service that we use to provide when our regular teachers or IAs are absent. And we actually I meet with my rep from Swing on a quarterly basis, and she brings me data as to our utilization and things like that. And we actually have a chart that shows this is from last August of 2021 through actually July 31st, so a little bit more than a full school year. We had, so just to share with you, about 180 employees are represented by use of this service. The rest of them don't really require substitutes in their position, like you're not going to get a sub to fill in for me, right? So there was 1,528 absences in that period. 1,106 were filled, so a 72.4% fill rate. So what this service has done for us is that it's extremely difficult to keep a active sub list district in-house. In fact, right now I have 0 guest teachers on my sub list. Now I do have about 6 instructional assistants who hold their 30-day permit throughout the district, but they have a commitment to their instructional assistant position. If we have a situation where we don't have an assignment filled for a classroom teacher, occasionally we will pull them from the programs that they're dedicated to in order to fill that assignment. We also pull from our specialists and our enrichment teams when we do need coverage, as well as our administrators. So a 72% fill rate doesn't sound like a lot, but honestly, this program has been a godsend for us. The cost of the program is expensive, but it's a cost that will be borne anyways if we were to have our own guest teacher list and we're actually getting the assignments filled. The cost of the program is about 40%. If we had our own employees staffing this, the cost to us would actually be about 32%. So really about an 8% difference in terms of the overall cost of the program, and we're actually having our classroom staffed with qualified employees. They have about 400 substitutes in our area. Those who are non-credentialed all have bachelor's degrees, and Swing works with them to gain their 30-day sub permit by meeting the requirements of the testing and applying for their permits. So they're also trying to grow from within to provide more guest teacher service in our area and throughout the state. So I just wanted to share the little bit of data. As you can see, there are some spikes here. I would say that COVID did affect some of our absenteeism last year. And you can see that in the months of January especially, And also in May, we had another little spike. COVID did have an effect. This also represents 4 long-term leaves that range anywhere from 2 to 4 months. So about 25 days to about 40 days of absence between those, for each leave, depending on how long the leave was. So,
Thank you.
And thank you for explaining the spikes because I was curious about that.
yeah, the spikes have everything to do with the COVID increases. Now, I will tell you that we had 87 COVID cases amongst our staff last year, which is about 1/3 of our staff. So that's actually not terrible, considering. Yeah.
This is clearly one of our better investments. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7D, approval of construction services agreement for construction for costs for Bell Avenue Channel Drain construction.
Second.
Any comments?
This item's related to a previous board meeting. We talked about measures that were being taken to prevent additional flooding at the Bell Avenue Elementary School site. As we experienced last year during that freak storm, we did have an overwhelming of the city's sewer system, which led to a backup into our site. So as a contingency and at the request of the district, what happened is we explored different solutions in order to mitigate that from occurring. If it does occur, to prevent damage to the buildings and to divert the water elsewhere. We did explore options of punching into a separate storm chamber over on the south side of the campus instead of our normal collection, or in addition to our normal connection on the east side. But once again, the problem there is you're tying into the city's sewer, and therefore the backup you're experiencing on one side of the street will probably occur on the other side of the street. So we explored options to create basically a drainage out into the field. So understanding that, if an event like that occurs again and the system is overwhelmed, that our backup would be to drain into the field and then naturally percolate through the soils that we had out there. We did run that originally. We had intended to do that work through the contractor and architect on site. We found that their design and the associated costs was rather high, and so we took it out for bid, and this resulted in a cost savings for that particular project of about 50% or so. So overall, being able to take this project and put it out separately, it was a cost savings. This is an additional cost to the project because it was not originally contemplated. So that is an overall cost to it. But we are asking you to approve the contract going forward. It is important to note that the work is underway. And so I just want to note that as well, just because if you do see bulldozers out there, what's going on, that's what's happening. They're trying to get that work done before if we ever do get rain again, and then B, obviously to allow for the field to be of some use to the students going forward.
Thank you.
I still think the city should pay for that, but
That's always, I am limited in my ability to exert that political pressure, but I would encourage you to write your representatives.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, approval of construction services agreement with C Construction for costs for the Main Avenue Elementary School blacktop pavement.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
So this project is outside of the Measure H and Measure K profile. This was a project that the district determined that it wanted to proceed with to address the damage to the blacktop that's occurred over the years. If you've been out to Main Avenue, you'll notice that there's been a lot of repair work to the blacktop over time. And then also following any water intrusion, we do have puddling and drainage issues at that site. The district decided that it would utilize ESSER funds to make improvements to those spaces as those become more critical, since that provides outdoor learning spaces and PE, so upgrades in terms of make sure that students are able to utilize those without the higher potential of of tripping over a seal or a plant that's growing out of the middle of the blacktop. So once again, that work was undertaken. This is tied to a professional service contract previously that you had approved regarding the geotechnical studies. So making sure that we had the adequate percolation once again and drainage engineered there. And then this is the actual work that was conducted at Main Avenue to rectify that. So once again, this reflects work that's been completed. If you go out to Main Avenue, there's a new blacktop, there's striping and what have you. And just due to the timing of the board meetings, we're coming back to you with this item.
Okay.
When was the work completed?
I think it was probably 3 days ago.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7F. Adopt resolution increasing developer fees. Mr. Castillo, any?
Good evening again. This resolution, last year, about a year ago exactly, the board approved a developer fee study and a resolution. We had to come back again in order for us to qualify for the funds for the TK classroom for the hardship. We had to prove to the state that we are obtaining the highest developer fees that we can. And during that transition from last year to this year, the state approved to this higher rate. So it's actually for us, it will be 38 cents for the 38 cents more for residential and 4 cents more for commercial. This is what the resolution is for. Than what you approved last year.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
The motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And thank you. And that ends the action items section. We'll move on to section 8, board member requests for future agenda items and reports. Trustee Devine?
Nothing at this time.
Nothing inside.
Trustee
Nothing
Davis?
at this time.
And I have nothing. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for joining us here and at home.
Thank you.